All right. So we're going to be talking about mediumship here, talking to dead people and channeling. First thing first, the difference between mediumship and channeling is that mediumship is we are communicating with. Think of it like picking up the telephone and talking to somebody. If you are channeling, you are inviting the energy into your space, into your body, if you like, to communicate or relate to. I was trained and am of the belief I don't want anything or anybody in my body. That's me. You can do it your way. I remain of the point of view there's no one way, there's no right way. I was trained a certain way. There's only, we're trained a certain way. No matter what college you go to, no matter who your parents were, you're taught things that make sense to you and that you live by, right or wrong, good or bad. I was taught not a good idea to channel. Um, but if that's your thing, if that's how you get information, so be it. You can decide. You have free will, autonomy over your system. So here's how you connect, basically. And I put this picture of a staircase over here because in our meditation we're going to do in a moment, the focal point I use has to do with a circular staircase. So I just kind of wanted you to have a visual to work with. So when we're going to get into the mediumship mode, because it's different than psychic reading. When we're psychic reading, it's off to the left ear. It's almost like there's a megaphone that comes into the left ear, and if you go through the megaphone type structure, there is a blueprint, which I will talk about at another time in the reading portion as we get into just doing readings. So you'll notice when you're reading, you often look to the left when you're trying to get information. Maybe some of you already noticed that. But when you're going to do mediumship, you're going to be going up, not to the left, up. It's a different energy. But you always want to ground, always want to protect yourself, because this is a different frequency. You're playing with beings. And you may only be trying to call in a certain person, but that doesn't mean you may not call in others. So you always want your protection and you want to be grounded. Next thing you can do, you're going to go to the center of your head. You want to be back there in the control tower as an observer. You're picking up the phone, you're not going through the phone. Then you turn your attention from the center of your head up, and then you're going to slowly go up this staircase as you call in the person you're trying to talk to. I do it by name. Other people do it in any number of ways, holding an object, whatever. I've always been trained, and the way I tune into anybody or any situation is through name. And beings, dead people, they often talk in pictures. They do talk in emotions and sometimes language. For me, it's usually pictures, and then that's how I can begin to interpret the message. And everybody's different. Some people are stronger mediums than others, and that's their whole shtick, if you will, and they get more specific information in different ways. I consider myself a psychic, but because people want mediumship so much, I have learned how to do mediumship work. I'm not that comfortable with it. I don't really like doing it that much. I do it when people want it because it means so much to them. But it's certainly work. It's harder than psychic reading. I mean, the way the energy runs, it's different. Now, before we try, let's go into things that can influence our information and interpretations we get from dead people. The time of death. This is really important because I have had people come into my office who they had someone murdered 2 days before. They're grieving. They're still in shock, let alone the entity hasn't quite assimilated. It's not automatic. My best time to read, not the best time, but I really don't like to read someone who's passed for at least 2 months. It just seems like after that things have really settled on both sides. So that's that's my baseline. And people will often tell me someone's passed, can you read? Well, I will tune in and see what I get, but usually it's not that reliable, or it's just not helpful at that time. There's too much transition energy, for lack of a better word. The second thing is the method of death. If there's been a chaotic or tragic or horrific accident, death, murder, sometimes the entity can get stuck, if you will, in that. And also, the way the readee is relating to the death, that can also influence how you read that person. So sometimes you may find yourself in a position helping the entity along, depending upon the method of death. They can get stuck. So when you're trying to get information, that's important to know that if you're finding you're hitting a wall of just frustration and horror, that would give you an instinct that the person had a horrific death. And again, the level of grief of the person asking the question, that can really cloud the connection, because they're part of the connection. And if their grief is so overwhelming, that can also be an impediment. And sometimes I've noticed entities don't always want to come forward if the person is in massive amount of grief, unless there's a specific message that's going to help relieve them of grief. And so this is a reason, if the person is in heavy grief, I don't want to read them for at least 6 months after the person has passed. I had a person once who contacted me for a session, and it had been a very short period of time, and she couldn't hear any information. It just got really intense for her real quickly. Okay, so here's some warning and cautionary signs. Different smells and aromas. You want to pay attention to, like, pine smells, caramel smells, sweet smells. Those are typically related with beings who are, they don't have good on their agenda. So you want to move away from that aroma as soon as possible and put up a lot of protection. Use duplication for that as well. You can use duplication for a smell, by the way. Just attach a color to it and blast it out. Stickiness. If all of a sudden you're almost like hearing a crackling, or you're feeling it in your hands, another type of energy you want to move away from. Some of this makes sense when it's happening to you, but I'm just giving you the heads up if you're going to be moving into these realms. The other thing, uncontrollable poltergeist activity. Poltergeists tend to attach to stress energies of all kinds. But if you get into a situation where stuff's flying around and you can't get it to calm down, then obviously protect, duplicate, get the heck out of there. You don't want to, you don't have a mission in life to take care of intangible being activity. That's not your job. And that relates to your inability to secure your personal space. You don't want to be in a position where, you're in harm's way and someone, you're going to get hit over the head with a book or something. Okay. So everybody find their grounding. Let's go into the center of the head, so you can take the walk up to the channeling door, if you want to call it there. So everyone get your grounding set. Pull your aura in and put yourself in a bubble. Secure your personal space, your aura inside the bubble. Roses, front and back, top, bottom. And once you find yourself in the center of your head, behind your eyes, I want you to very slowly turn your attention upward and then turn around facing the back of your head. And then as you turn, you'll notice immediately it starts to get a little quieter. And this is where you can begin to ascend up the spiral staircase. And I had given you a picture, but you should begin to become aware of this spiral up yourself and go up very slowly. And as you turn your attention up and you go up the spiral staircase, or I'm calling it a staircase, but it's a spiral, you will begin to feel very cold, and notice that it's super condensed and quiet. Okay. And it's at this place you'd be able to call in someone you want to talk to. You're ready in this place. Okay. So take note of what it feels like to be here, and remember it, so that when you're ready to do this work, this is where you go. So when you're done perceiving this space, I want you to make sure you notate this. If you have any questions about it, I want you to go to the closed Facebook group and write about it. But when you're done here, I want you to come back down the staircase, turn your attention back around to the front, blow some roses, make sure you're very grounded and you've closed that door. Let's call it a door. And you're back in your system. Okay?